You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Pro-Black Perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions. Your host tonight is the author of the Pro-Black Compendium and Zuberi and the Maroons of Maa, the Pan-African Nationalist, Oni. Oni, what are we discussing tonight?
Peace Seeker, we're going to talk about where we are going wrong in teaching our people. Where we're going wrong. But first, I want to say thank you to everyone who has purchased, read, and reviewed the Pro-Black Compendium. I got 2 reviews this month, and I'm ecstatic. You know, 2 doesn't sound like much to most of you, but it's a lot to me. And I'm very grateful that this month, you know, showed 2. So definitely, I would love to see more reviews. I would like to see more followers, subscriptions, likes, and of course comments. But in the meantime, in between time, I'm very grateful for what I have. You know, it's amazing, and I really do enjoy seeing those pictures of people purchasing the book, either the receipts or even the book with just their hand or whatever. But I'm really appreciating it. I'm liking the dialogue, the discussion surrounding the book, and I just, you know, it's wonderful, and to see that continue is grateful for me. You know, I'm grateful for that. But let's start off talking about how we're going to get to our people. And here's something that I want to share with you all, right? So I have this notebook here, right? And this notebook is fairly old, because without telling you how old I am, you know, I'm going to say what the first line in this new notebook was. So the first line in this new notebook is, I am 15 and against abortion. Abortion is a form of genocide, and under no circumstance will I agree with genocide, especially not the genocide of my own people. Okay? So, this is me, right? 15 years old. You know, little boy, I guess, right? Picking up a notebook and saying, I'm going to start writing in this notebook some thoughts I have, because I saw this image of this brother holding up a sign that says something along the lines of abortion kills black people, right? Now, I don't know necessarily if I met the photographer who took that picture, right? But I did meet a photographer. Eventually, I had a friend who was a photographer who had a picture similar to that. And it's very important, you know, because that image really assisted me in my own political thinking. Because before that, I was like most black people, you know, diehard Democrat, if you will. Now, of course, I'm 15 years old. I ain't never voted in my life, but I'm still a diehard Democrat for some reason, right? But then I see this image where this brother is just holding up a sign, just regular sign, and it says, you know, abortion kills black people. And I look it up, and I'm like, whoa. You know, I look into this, you know, Planned Parenthood and all that stuff, and it's like, wow, I can't really mess with the Democrats like that, or like wholeheartedly, or the Democratic agenda wholeheartedly, only because, you know, this whole targeting black people with abortion, you know, I can't necessarily do the two, but I tell you this story because it has an important lesson to it, you know. Now, of course, in this notebook, later on, right, like just the next paragraph. I mean, the next paragraph, I kind of jump ahead in time, you know. So I jump to 2005, right, and I write, you know, on a Monday, I'm writing how, you know, I say a change of plan with this book from earlier, last week, and then I say some, some stupid stuff like Ralph Waldo Emerson said, I was a little 15-year-old boy, in a white school. Of course, I'm going to quote Ralph Waldo Emerson, right? Maybe I should edit this out, right? No, I'm joking. All right. But then later on like 2 days after that, I'm describing a school system. I'm saying, like, I'm describing an ideal curriculum. I'm saying from 3 to 18, they're going to focus on minor academics and major morals and manners from 3 to 12, and major academics from 12 to 16, and military discipline, and minor politics and academics and so on and so forth. And later on, and earlier from that, I was saying, part of the purpose for this book now was the evolution of mankind to erudites. Of course, like I said again, I'm 15 years old. I'm not necessarily, I didn't grow into my consciousness yet. So of course I'm talking about, all of mankind, like somebody that don't got no dang sense, But later on, there's pages and pages of more. First off, I'm describing the academic system, right? I'm describing a new, like how to develop an academic system, a curriculum, if you will, right? And if those of you who have the Pro-Black Compendium know that I eventually do develop a curriculum, But again, this is something I was talking about, when I was 15, which was, a good amount of years ago, right? But I'm talking about a curriculum. You got to bear in mind, I'm talking about a curriculum because school is, is physically failing, like black people. It's failing it's failing everybody. The American schools fail everybody, right? And even when I was 15, I knew about how other countries do better than America, right? But it's failing black people, and me in particular, if you will, right? In the sense that, school doesn't bring out genius. Whether it's mine or other black people, don't bring out genius. And so that's why I'm writing this curriculum, right? But if you want to know more about me, I was like a top student in mathematics, right? And when I say top student, I mean like statewide top. Like there's this statewide exam called the Regents, right? And I scored perfect scores on that. In New York, there's a statewide exam called the Regents. I scored hundreds on that, like 100 on that, right? When I got diagnostic tests, aced them. At one point I was going through an SAT prep course, and I'm sitting in the class, and the instructor makes a mistake, so I call out the instructor. So black kids in my grade, at least, they looked at me like, yo, this brother is like, not what they say. You know what I'm saying? It's not what they say. They say that we ain't got it. This brother proves them wrong. You get what I'm saying? If white people saw me the same way, if white people were like, yo, black people ain't good, blah, blah, but then they see me, they like, well, like, you can't say that anymore. And that's something that you have to realize, that sometimes, and I shouldn't toot my own horn, which is what it sounds like. But let's say, Paul Laurence Dunbar was the same way, Paul Laurence Dunbar was really great at poetry, right? And he was so good that, like it didn't matter who you were, white or black, whether you were for the Union or for the Confederacy, right? When Paul Laurence Dunbar read a poem, right, you gave a standing ovation. You know what I mean? And so, as much as, people don't really, a lot of people gonna listen and be like, well, who cares if white people stand up? But the thing I found interesting about the particular white person who stood up was this dude named Jefferson Davis. So he's the president of the Confederacy, and he's giving Paul Laurence Dunbar a standing ovation. You get what I'm saying? Now, to some of y'all like, man, come on, who cares about whether black white people do it? And that's true. Who cares? But of course, this is going to touch on to the point later on. Okay, it's going to touch on to the point later on, right? But later on in the same book that I wrote, right? Looks like it's still 2005, right? I'm writing about what the ideal society would look like. Okay? Are you following me? Because again, the society, the government, all that kind of stuff failed us as a people. Okay? And of course, like I said, of course I'm a black person, so I'm focusing on how it feels as black people, but I'm also being realistic, at that point in time, I'm thinking, governmental reform, obviously. But of course, this governmental reform is so radical. If you actually look at this book, it's kind of like, this little kid needs to go find himself a woman or something. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is that right there is just another aspect to it of the society is failing, so I gotta look, I gotta think of solutions. Now, of course, later on I get into what's considered political debates, and I get into different political avenues. But again, those are the kind of what's the reason why I'm doing that is because there's something else behind it. And of course, this touches on the larger conversation at hand, right? But in the meantime, what I'm trying to show you is that here I am, young, who knows, 15, maybe a little older, maybe a little young, well, definitely older, right? And I'm writing about how the systemic failures, right, need to be addressed somehow. And I'm putting my young mind toward the task of addressing these systemic failures so that, if nothing else, my progeny will have a better future. So of course I don't really like that's just me from as far back as I could remember. As far back as I was writing. You know what I mean? Like obviously I was doing this before that too. But that was one of the thoughts I wrote in light of, the sort of blind Democrat kind of thing that I was doing, right? Now here's the thing though, right? On page 186 of the Pro-Black Compendium, we talk about intelligence and wisdom, right? We talk about the ability, we say intelligence is, these are the things that education should develop. So like if you were to do a school, if you will, you gotta consider what are the attributes that you're looking to develop. And one of the important attributes would be intelligence and wisdom, among others, right? And how would you define intelligence but the ability to understand reality, and of course wisdom, the ability to discern reality, and the ancients have defined reality for us, which is, the sum of laws that govern nature and the causes from which they flow, right? But I say all this to say that, it's reality, right? Reality is one of the motivators. But I'm going to explain it more in depth a little bit later. But the key point to this is what reality is. So reality for me is that school is failing us, right? School is failing me. The public school system is failing people. It's not bringing out genius. Okay? It's not bringing out genius. I mean, even though I was a top statewide, I was one of the top statewide people in, students in New York, like in New York State. You know what I'm saying? Even though I was one of the top students in mathematics in New York State, you wouldn't know that. You know what I mean? Like I could remember in fifth grade, right? No, it could have been either fifth grade or third grade or something like that. It's not fifth grade, right? When I was in elementary school, right? The class had awards, right? And like the top students in math was me, another brother, right? Some little Chinese kid and some Russian kid, right? And like every time we had a test, we'd all come together and compare our scores and see whoever scored the highest and by how much or whatever, right? And usually it was like we were comparing 96s and 98s and that kind of thing, right? So it was good fun because me and the brother, we was showing it against these two these Asians and these Russians, right? Or whatever, right? And what happened was that for the class, right? In the class, when we had award night, because that's what happens inside of elementary school. The person who won the class math award was a little Chinese boy, and everybody in the class was just shocked, because they were like, that should go to Oni, right? But when it came to the state award, so the state gave award too to the school, right? And the state, and of course I wasn't even in the top class, okay? So because of like what they call tracking. So tracking is basically the way how they kind of segregate schools in the north. So they put all the black kids in one class, and they put all the white kids in another class, and they call the white kids gifted, or they give it a special program name like Eagle or SIG or whatever. But basically, the gifted program has more resources poured into it. More money goes into those. They have better textbooks, better everything, right? And the black kids and the kids in my class don't, And of course, there's some token kids that's not, like the Asian boy or the Russian boy, that's in my class, but it's mostly black kids, right? And of course, there's tokens in the gifted class, and they're mostly like, they're mostly coons or whatever, right? But the whole thing was that in the entire school, right, the state, gives awards based off of, statewide exams. And it was like, and the state said, Oni gets that award. Notwithstanding that I didn't get my class award, notwithstanding that I wasn't in the top class, notwithstanding whatever, and even all that, regardless, right? The school wouldn't ever put me in the gifted program. It wouldn't ever do that. But and part of it was, they always had an excuse. They always had an excuse, and of course, black parents aren't prepared to do anything about that. But that's a whole other story, right? But I say this to say that reality, right? Reality, when you come across reality, right? A response, you kind of it's that reality that makes you want to do something. Now contrast that to a black kid who's failing, or not contrast that to a friend, for instance, a friend that I had who was left back twice, right? And he was our good friend. It was me, him, and this other brother, and we actually wanted to do a rap group at that time, right? But this other brother, he was left back twice, and he one time came to me, and this was a long time. Like I said, it's like 5th grade, right? He came to me and he said, "Odie, why you act like you so smart?" Right? I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, why would you even say that?" And he goes, "Well, just look at, like, because we're in the playground now, right?" And he says, "Just look at the gifted class, right? And look at us. The gifted class, of course, when you look at it, because they had us all lined up. All of us lined up at the end of recess, and they brought the white kids in first, and then they brought us later. There's a lot of weird stuff, like you knew you were being segregated, right? But the whole thing was that, but at the same time is that you didn't know, like you knew that the classes were racially homogenous, if you will, right? With a few tokens, right? But like the other boy, because he failed twice, he said, "Why are you pretending to be smart if black people aren't smart?" You understand? And his failing and his not being, not feeling like, not being awarded anywhere, not being recognized anywhere, just feeling yada yada. His whole thing was, black people are dumber. You see? He's like, black people are dumber, whereas, me, where I'm like, I had, siblings who were pretty smart too, or like, for instance, my siblings were in like better programs in the school, whatever. But on top of that, like I was recognized as smart early. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's like I can't go around saying that black people are dumb. I gotta say that there's some sort of racial bias going on. So even when I was younger, I was so even from that, from the time this brother, pulled me aside and told me that nonsense, and I dismissed it. I was like, look, I got to do something for my people. So that's me in 5th grade. But again, that's part of the, what's reality, if you will. Because to me, reality is, black people are being, we're going through this weird segregation, if you will, right? But to this other brother, reality is, black people are just dumb. Like who knows what his family life was like, but that was his reality, which was different from mine. But and that's another thing that's important too, because like, let's say we go into this thing, we go into black culture. What is black culture? And a lot of people would say, well, it's rap music, okay? But here's the interesting thing about rap music, right? It changed under our noses. Okay? It changed under our noses. What I heard was that rap music was rebel music. Right? Once upon a time it was rebel music. And there's actually some white boy who told me that. I mean, he was a teacher. But basically, some white boy was saying, rap music used to be rebel music. Used to be, fight the power, used to be crack is whack. Used to be don't sell out, or used to be let's forget the white beauty standards or whatever, right? But now what is it? Some other sister was saying, she was saying that if you were to just say the woman in the rap music video, right? She could start describing her, the woman in the rap music video right now, without having any video in front of her, because we all know what she looks like. She's light as you. She's straight here. She's, she's gyrating for some reason. That replaced that replaced rebel music. You understand what I'm saying? And yet it changed under our nose, but at the same time, if you most people haven't caught that, or they haven't caught it, because technically, for instance, NWA, marked the change. You get what I'm saying? From NWA forward, it was no law. It was profit, if you will. It was the CEO, it was the white CEO, pretty much putting out the music, right? But most of us figure, well, NWA is instrumental. Tupac, Biggie, those are hip hop icons. You understand? But if you going by Tupac and Biggie are hip hop icons, you already lost. You done messed up. We're gonna go to a commercial.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Peace Seeker. This is Oni from the Pro-Black Perspective, and we need power. Power will not be handed to us. We need to build power. But in order to build power, we need a power blueprint. You need to study the best blueprints available. You have Garvey's. You have Wilson's. You have Williams. You have mine. Now, you'll have Cook's. Carlos A. Cook's was Garvey's best student. The greatest mind in the world from 1940 to 1966. Yes, the greatest. Yet Whitey doesn't want you to read his blueprint. Cook's blueprint isn't religious. Cook's isn't for integration. Cook's isn't for communism. Cook's isn't even for anti-blacks. Cook's blueprint is for Africa. And Cook's blueprint is the unknown blueprint that was the basis of black power as we know it today. When you say buy black, you're talking about Cook's. When you say black is beautiful, you're talking about Cook's. When you say Malcolm got something right, you're talking about Cook's. But Cook's blueprint was lost. And Whitey is hiding that blueprint behind a $1,000 paywall. He's hiding solutions from you, telling you you need to take out a small loan to get the information that can liberate you. Whitey does not want you to have solutions to your problems, but you need solutions. You need power. I will give you the Carlos A. Cook's Reader, valued over $1,000 at a 98% discount, $15. Send $15 to cash.me/$ABS-ONI with the subject Carlos and your email address, and I'll send you the ebook. We need power. You need blueprints. Start building today.
You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio.
Okay, and we're back. All right, so here's the important thing, right? So when I say reality, right, some of you might say, like, well, what is reality? Now, again, reality is the sum of laws that govern nature and the causes from which they flow. So it's not really hard to know what reality is. But the reality of not knowing what reality is, or the reality of knowing what reality is that it's fairly difficult, particularly if you're just a kid. You know, like I said, we were, like, me and this dude were in 5th grade. He was maybe 2 years older than me because he was left back twice. But again, we was just kids, you know, and nobody's really preparing us. And we was in the public school system deep, and we was under racial segregation. And I'm not saying that because I'm old or something, because I'm not. It's just that that's the reality of New York schools, like, to this day. You know, this thing, it's called tracking. You know, you can look it up. But the whole idea is that, you know, racial segregation is not uncommon in the North, you know, particularly in the public school system. They have a gifted program and they have a non-gifted program. And the whole design is to put the white kids in the gifted program and the black kids in the non-gifted program. And it has a psychological impact on the black kids and the white kids. But here's the thing, though. What made me, for instance, you know, when you go back to the first political statement I made, which is about abortion, right, and how it targets black people, what made me open my eyes was not so much that, hey, you know, not so much that it's reality, not so much that it's true, right, as much as the fact that it's a contradiction. You follow me? It's a contradiction for me to say, hey, I'm going for the Democrats because I'm about my people. But the Democrats are supporting a political motion, if you will, that's particularly targeted against black people to limit our population. You understand? Now, I'm not really discussing whether, you know, the merits and demerits of abortion and whether somebody, you know, yada yada. You know, I'm not discussing that. You know, because, you know, like, that's a whole other conversation. You know, what I'm saying is that, you know, when you talk about, let's say, being pro-black, or when you talk about loving your people, you know, you can't also say, hey, I want to, you know, I love my people so much that I'll support institutions that are deliberately placed in their neighborhoods, deliberately advertised in their neighborhoods, deliberately soliciting funds in their neighborhoods to kill their children or to kill their youth. You know, that right there is the difference, right? But again, of course, I was young then. Again, I was 15, so I'm not really interested in having that conversation right now because that was the space that I was in. I'm thinking about the space that I was in, you know, and of course, and I want to say going forward again, like to say the education system. It's like, you know, if I understand that there are other countries that have better educational systems when it comes to mathematics, if you will, right? Or really anything, but you know, particularly, let's say, mathematics, right? Or if I understand that I could be doing better, or I could be recognized, or I should be recognized on a higher level, if you will, right? Then I'm going to write something, you know, then I see a contradiction and I'm going to write something to address that contradiction. You follow me? Or when I see that the government is failing our people in some way, or has, so on and so forth, again, I see another contradiction. If the government is supposed to be some good entity, and of course I was young, naive, 15, whatever, right? But if the government is supposed to be some good entity, right, then why is this result coming about? You follow me? So again, you gotta follow, contradictions, if you will, right? And it's the contradictions that inform people to change their mindset, because a lot of times what we're doing, right, is we're not getting with the contradictions. And the way how I'm gonna say this is this, right? So fast forward, like I said, I eventually, sought out different solutions, I sought out different solutions, and at one point I was some rampant leftist, okay, like a hot mess leftist, right? And like kind of like a Marxist, communist, kind of like that, right? And I observed the debate between two white people who knew their stuff, okay? And I tell you, this debate was really eye-opening for me, right? Because like I said, I was a part of the Marxist camp, right? So it was this like well-read Marxist, right? Versus I want to say like a neutral liberal or something like that, right? And so when I'm reading this debate, you know how like basically these white boys are just going I could barely even follow debate because they just using these big words, big terms, like it looks like some real intellectual heavyweight stuff. I couldn't even join, They were, the dichotomy, blah 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 blah, right? And from the looks of it though, right, this Marxist was hammering this liberal hard. This liberal was holding his own, but this Marxist was hammering this liberal hard, right? And it looks like like from the looks of it, like it was a really good debate, as far as I could tell, right? And I'm like, there you go, when this Marxist is gonna beat this liberal, and that's just gonna further prove my point that the Marxists, that the leftists are better than the either the centrists or the rightists, right? Because this liberal was like a centrist, if you will, right? And then the liberal pulled off this move. He said, well, how Wittgenstein or whatever, right, said, at the core of all well-founded belief lies belief that is unfounded. And then the Marxists just backed up and said, yeah, you're right. And that was the end of the debate. Now I'm gonna try to look up this white boy's name again, but I don't know if y'all heard me, right? So it's if you want to hear the first name, Ludwig Wittgenstein, right? But here's what the white boy says. He says, at the core of all well-founded belief lies belief that is unfounded. And the Marxists just surrendered and said, yeah, you're right. And I guess my point doesn't really stand. I guess neither of our points really stand. And then that was the end of the debate. And to me, it was like, whoa, what just happened? You understand? What just happened? Because here, this white boy is, one of them is going hard on the other one, talking about, well, look at this, cite this, this idea, that idea. And the other one says, yeah, but, none of our ideas really mean anything. Or none of our ideas have any foundation. And the other one says, yeah, you're right. And that was it. And to me, it was like, I couldn't be a leftist Marxist after that, because, again, that was a contradiction right there. Because if you had such a great belief and then you got lost like that, then it's a contradiction. And of course, what I learned eventually, right? What I learned eventually was that this only applies to white people. This only applies to white people. And actually, when I write this online. I have it somewhere in this particular article called Collected Quotations, yada yada. And what I wrote was, I first read this when two Occidental intellectuals, Occidental intellects were debating. One wonders by utilizing this quotation. It was fascinating to me. It was an eye-opener to see that Europeans knew that they relied solely on myths. You know? So it's to say that this is what white people do, right? White people, like this contradiction is partly why for my next book, I'm considering putting in maybe 10 quotations and maybe 10 Eurasians. 10 Eurasian quotations and 10 Eurasian descriptions, if you will, right? About Eurasians that you can see where the contradiction, or you could learn a little bit something. You can learn something about them, if you will. You know, and of course I could say the same thing. Like I said, I could tell you Europeans rely on myth. You know, that's all you really need to know. But, you know, it's kind of like hearing from the horse's mouth. The reality that they think that this guy Wittgenstein, right, isn't some pushover whitey. You know, he's like one of their brightest. And what he's saying is, at the core of all well-founded belief lies belief that is unfounded. Which basically means, at the core of Christianity, if you will, or the core of well, for even them, you know, for let's say we're gonna go to the, you know, the Asian group, the core of Islam, at the core of Judaism, the core of Marxism, the core of capitalism, the core of all of their beliefs is belief that's unfounded. Basically, it's hollow. Basically, and this is the thing that we as the people don't know. But of course, like I said, you know, what I did was I once upon a time I did read a bunch of white philosophers, right? And I picked up on the fact that the reality that if you look at their smartest, right? Like their smartest white folk, all they do is say the same thing. Say that, oh, you know what? White stuff is nonsense. Okay? Like for instance, a popular one, I forgot the other example. I don't want to pull out my book, so I'm not even going to look into it, if you will. But let's look at Descartes, or whatever, right? Descartes is famous for the Cartesian coordinates, you know, the X, Y axis, all that. But another thing that he says is, I think, therefore I am, right? And, well, he doesn't say that verbatim, but the concept is there. You know, I think, therefore I am. And he's considered, quote unquote, the father of modern philosophy, one of them, right? As to say that, you know, he's not some pushover whitey, right? But the context of him saying, I think, therefore I am, is to say that he is doubtful of everything that he's learned prior. So he goes to the best white schools, learns everything, yada, 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 and then he, at the end of his schooling, he says, you know what? All of this was nonsense. Like, I can't believe anything there. So I'm going to doubt everything, and the only thing I can say for certain is that I exist. That's all that statement means. That he's going to work not from a premise of anything before him meaning anything. And remember, he's like one of the brightest of white people. Now the brightest white person that you know anybody knows of is this dude, you know, either Plato or Socrates, right? But I got an article, you know, I wrote in 2011 that kind of tells you that Plato was insulting every European, right? Because here's the thing, that there's two things that popularizes Socrates, if you will. And I know some of you sitting there, or you know, sitting there like, well, why are you talking about these white people so much? But I'm gonna link it all together, all right? But the thing about Socrates again is he's known for two things. One is he's known for funny enough, he's known for saying, know thyself, right? And you already know where he got that from, okay? But that's one of the things that he goes around saying. He says, know thyself, right? And the other one that he's popular for saying is saying that he's the wisest person. He goes around Europe saying he's the wisest person. He goes around proving that other people are fools and not as wise as him. And he says he's the wisest person only because, listen to this, only because he knows that he doesn't know, whereas other people don't know that they don't know. Okay, so that's what Socrates said. He's going around saying he's the smartest because he knows that he doesn't know. And a lot of piss poor white people repeat that same thing, like, well, I'm smart because I know I don't know, right? Now check this out. This, you know, Anthony Browder records a poem called Know Thyself in his book Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. And the poem goes like this, right? It says, a person who knows not and knows not that they know not is foolish, disregard them, right? So that's the first sentence. Now, if you pick up on that, what Socrates is then saying, because he read this poem, okay? Because Socrates read this poem, so or Plato or Socrates, whatever, right? Read this poem. So what they're saying is that everybody in Europe is foolish, and you should disregard them. You understand? He goes on to say, the poem goes on to say, a person who knows not and knows that they know not is simple. Teach them. So that means he's going around saying that he's simple. That's what he's really saying. That's the whole Plato story is about. But Whitey don't know this, and Whitey didn't tell you this. But the whole thing is a reference to this poem, right? Again, a person who knows not and believes that they know is dangerous. Avoid them. Again, so he's saying that if you don't know but you believe that you know, right, then you're dangerous. The poem is saying that. So when he's going around, when Plato's going around Europe and he sees people who don't know that they don't know, he's calling them fools. And if he says he sees people who know that they who believe that they know, even though they don't know, they're dangerous and you should avoid them, right? Going forward, it says a person who knows and knows not that they know is asleep. Awake them, right? So a person who knows and knows not that they know is asleep. Awake them, right? And a person who knows and knows that they know is wise. Follow them. Now the poem goes on to say, all of these persons reside in you. Know thyself, and to Ma'at be true. Okay. Now I'm a little upset. I didn't. Oh no! Wait, hold on a second. Yeah, so I actually included this poem in the Pro-Black Compendium, right? That's page 100, right? So I included this poem in the Pro-Black Compendium. It's on page 100. So that right there is, that's good. You have it if you have the book. But what I'm saying is this, that you got Plato going around calling white people foolish and dangerous and pretty much don't know what they're talking about, right? You got Descartes, you got some other white people too, and you got Wittgenstein, right? All of them pretty much saying that it's all nonsense. And the thing is this, that what you don't understand too, or what you ain't hear, is that all of this stuff about, all this knowledge is nonsense, is only applicable to white knowledge. Because African knowledge don't have the same thing. If you peep the poem is not saying that everybody's that. The poem is saying, some people know and you should follow them. You understand? Some people have well-founded beliefs, and those are the ancient Africans. You understand? But here's the thing with that though, right? The thing is this, that you only hear that white people are the smartest. You don't hear what I just said, which was the contradiction, right, of them saying that you're the dumbest while saying that they're the smartest. If their smartest, listen to me, their smartest is telling you that they don't know anything, or that they gotta doubt everything, or that everybody that they see is a fool or dangerous, or a dangerous fool. You understand? You don't get that contradiction because all you hear is Plato was the smartest. Plato was the smartest. You don't understand the ancient African background to what he's saying. Okay? You don't understand that. You don't know Wittgenstein, and you don't understand the Descartes quote. You just hear Descartes was brilliant. He said, "I think, therefore I am." What's more brilliant than that? You know? Meanwhile, it's a stupid statement. It's a stupid statement. You understand? It comes in the context of, hey, you know what? Our people are stupid, and I can't believe a word that they say or said. That's all it is. But you don't know that, so you go around saying that white people are so smart. And I say the contradiction is really what goes, because like just to bring it back, like I said, I was with this. I had two classmates that I used to write rhymes with. I used to like rap. I used to like rap music a lot. And actually, when I went to junior high school, I had I had a friend who was like me and him used to freestyle over the phone. You know what I'm saying? Like imagine that, right? We used to freestyle over the phone. Over a beat and everything. We used to write battle raps online, all that kind of stuff, right? But I was a Biggie fan and he was a Tupac fan, right? And I tell you, I was really good with Biggie, and I thought about maybe spend a few Biggie bars right now, but nah, forget it, right? But here's the thing though, when I got to high school, I started to hear that Biggie, I was really hard on Biggie. I used to rhyme through the hallway, rapping Biggie, like a loser, of course, right? But then eventually, I couldn't mess with Biggie because one, I found out about KRS-One, right? When I was looking into the Biggie and Tupac beef, so I was like, KRS-One, Criminal Minded, give me that, right? But then the other hand, it was like Biggie said a lot of questionable things, like really questionable things, really, really degenerate, all that kind of like weird stuff. And it's like I couldn't be bigging up this brother, like I couldn't be bigging up him if he's saying all this. It's a contradiction. You understand? It's a contradiction that gets you moving. And this is the thing that I'm telling you this because we're not using these contradictions to our advantage. Okay? We're not using these contradictions to our advantage. We are always saying to ourselves, let's teach our people. But when we go to interact with our people, we're not addressing the contradictions and what's going on. And because we're not addressing it, it's like they can't turn to us. Sometimes we even mock them for saying something. Like I heard that one of the criteria for identifying, if you will, a coon or whatever, right, or a scary if you want, right. But the tool for identifying is to say, is they say, what about black on black crime, right? Now here's the trouble, right? They have a concern. The person has a concern. They say, hey, look, what about black on black crime? And then we go and mock them for it. And the thing is that we don't contradict them in that process, in that process of mocking them, right? We don't contradict them, and because we don't contradict them, right? It's like how do we expect them to try to reconcile two things? If they are advocating against, crime within our community, you should be like, yeah, we're against the crime in our own community too. And of course, you could say, hey, well, what about the Frankenstein monster, if you will? Like some principal, some school I visited had a principal who was talking about, how, at the end of the Frankenstein movie, you kill the monster, but you let the scientist create another monster. You know what I'm saying? You let the scientist create a sequel if he wants, but you kill the monster when really you should have killed the scientist. So that there's no more monsters being made. So that right there is, another, like if you were to go about the contradictory route, if you were to go the route of trying to point out contradictions, you would point out, hey, look, I'm all about, let's say that, but I believe that if we're going to stop the drug trade, we're going to stop the cops bringing in the drugs. You understand? And that's a whole different, it's a whole different story. If you're saying these are economic crimes, then that I'm about improving the economy. But the contradiction here is that you got to go against the people who are bringing down the economy. You got to say, yeah, if I'm against black on black crime, but I understand these are crimes of, these are economic crimes. And insofar as they are economic crimes, right, that means that I have to push those people who are depriving the community economically out. And I can't necessarily go with them. I can't support their businesses, if you will, and then be against crime. Like you go to them and you say, look, if you really don't want crime in the community, then you should support black businesses. You can't support white businesses that employ people outside the community and take money outside the community and then say you against black on black crime. And there you have it. You know what I'm saying? That's the contradictory argument. That's a contradiction argument, right? And of course, that's a genre called dialectics. You know what I'm saying? And that's a part of the Pro-Black Compendium. On page 187. We talk about dialectics, and let's say I have it in the glossary too, the way of truth and how to discern reality particularly through contradictions and understanding nature. You get what I'm saying? So that's really, you know, instrumental to a curriculum, if you will, right? That's on page 304, right? But that's instrumental to a curriculum. But the whole idea is that, you know, you got to go about in that way. So what we need to do is we need to start sharing resources for African knowledge, right? But unfortunately, like I was saying, you know, here's what happened with me. When I was younger, you know, I was going to all sorts of meetings. You know, I was going to the AAPRP, you know, that's Kwame Ture's organization. I was going to some socialist organization, you know. I was going to I think it was the PSL, the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I was going to the UNIA, you know, UAM, all that kind of stuff, right? But in the UNIA, I tell you, one of the dudes, you know, one of the leaders would have a meeting, and I would attend. He's like, yo, you gotta attend. It's great, you know, yada yada. So I go to the meeting, and he's talking about, you know, how men and women dress, and how men and women interact in relationships, and then he's talking about how red is a masculine color, and blue is a feminine color, and white people switched it up, and you know, because they gave women pink and they gave men blue, and that's kind of, you know. And the reality is this, that right there, it's not really useful, you know. I mean, it's good, but it's good. It's informative. You know, when I was listening to it, it was interesting, right? But it don't really bring no contradiction. You understand? Like, a lot of us want to teach our people, but then it's no real contradiction, you know? And that right there is the trouble. You know, you're talking about masculine and feminine colors, and who cares, you know? But it continues today, because like I said, I started being active on social media, and what I see a lot of, particularly on Twitter, is like these 60s debates, you know? 60s debates, like, you know, Malcolm X is better than Martin Luther King Jr. Like, okay, you know, like, what's the like, who cares? You know what I'm saying? Like, who cares? Where's the contradiction? What am I supposed to learn from that? What am I supposed to take from that? You have an opinion? Great, cool. Or then later on, I might see Marxism versus nationalism, you know? And again, it's not the same kind of debate that I saw with the Marxists and the liberal. You know, where the Marxists and the liberal said, hey, look, you know, the liberal said, hey, look, all your beliefs are on unfounded beliefs. The Marxist and liberal nationalism discussion that I see now is just useless. It's a repetition of a debate that was happening 100 years ago, right? That was resolved 100 years ago, and it's just pointless. But that's really like the currency going on, and these people who do it, they're just fighting they just keep fighting each other, and it doesn't go anywhere. You know, because there's no real resolve, because there's no real contradiction. You believe one thing, the other person believes another thing, and you're not showing them that they contradict themselves. You understand? You're not showing any contradiction. You're not showing any. You're just saying that I have this belief and you're stupid because you have this belief that's not African. And they're like, oh, but this African person had this belief. You know, you're gonna say Thomas Sankara was an African. You're gonna say Amilcar Cabral was an like, shut up. You know, because it's just stupid. But that's what's going on. Or we have other people who go around and talk about, we so rich, look at our resources. You know, look at our resources that we have. We so rich. You know, we got all the coltan in the world. So therefore, you know, and it's like, what? Who cares? You know, like you know, if you have all the, you know, if you was, you know, it's like nobody cares, in a sense. You know, and I'm not saying that, you know, you shouldn't care. I'm just saying that if you're really trying to convince people or towards something, it's like you're just saying something. You know, it reminds me of you know, when I ask Asim Adisi for a topic, you know, I was telling him that when I was in school, the professor, she was telling us that if you're going to write a thesis for a paper, right, that you got to have a so what, that you can't just say, for instance, you can't just say, oh, Africa has the most resources, right? Because it's like, who cares? Like, what does that mean? What are you trying to say? You got to have a so what. You know, Africa has the most resources, therefore Africa should be richer. Is a fuller statement, if you will. Or Africa has the most resources, but it has the poorest population because, so on and so forth. Something like that, right? But the idea is that if you're just saying this, it's like big deal, And then of course, we also have other stupid stuff we say like public food system, is like we need to reform the public food system or something like that. It's like, okay, then do it or something. Like what are you trying to say? What are you trying to do? Or even I had somebody else saying they wanted to put, let's say Malcolm X on a U.S. postage stamp. You know what I'm saying? Like that was the whole like if when you read the what I do when I put out the literature is I put out Pro-Black Compendium, I put out the Carl A. Cook's Reader, I put out Zuberi, and you see that none of that is there. None of that nonsense is there. Even though I know that stuff, even though I know about the potential for quote unquote black icon being on U.S. postage stamp, or even though I know about the public food system needing reforms, or even though I know about masculine and feminine colors and all that, I don't put that in the Pro-Black Compendium. Okay, because I'm only trying to put out what is necessary and what is relevant toward the uplift of our people. And not put us in some, because I like the esoteric stuff, I like the quasi-political stuff, I like all that stuff, but I really need us, focused, because I'm telling you, I sat in these meetings, I spoke with these people, and it's like, that is a big diversion. A lot of what we're doing, and these are some good people. I know the brother in the UNIA president here in Brooklyn, right? I know him. He's a good brother, right? But, that's a diversion. It's a distraction. I mean, masculine, feminine colors, it's interesting, but it's a distraction. I mean, would I put on red? Get that fire? Yeah, sure, right? But I'm not gonna waste your time with that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna waste your time on that. So, what I'm saying is that you should get your people books that don't waste your time and that get the African knowledge out there. And I think that's very important. Mostly because, check this out. I started tutoring this kid, right? I was told that this boy needed help in English. Okay? So I started tutoring him in English, and the boy was, let's just say, a hot mess. Okay? He was a hot mess, right? And the reason being is because like this boy don't read. Right? He doesn't read, and on top of that, he doesn't even hear people talking. Okay? So he doesn't hear people talking, and he doesn't read. And so when I asked him to read something, not only was he struggling over words, but he couldn't pronounce a lot of words. Right? And I mean, a part of it is that, he comes from really, the real part about it is that he just doesn't, interact with dialogue, if you will. And so I asked him, I said, what are you interested in? Because I wanted to get him a book so that we could, have him read that he likes. And he's telling me he likes basketball, right? So then eventually I say, look, do you I said, look, because he plays basketball and he watches basketball, right, on TV. I'm like, do you listen to the Sports Center? And he's like, no, he don't listen to Sports Center or nothing like that. None of those like commentaries on sports, right? So of course I decided to put some, sports commentary on. And early on they're talking about some basketball player got ejected for doing some foul or kind of something like that, right? Some sort of foul, so he gets ejected, right? And the boy don't know the word ejected. He don't know ejection, right? And I'm telling you all this not to like, crap on this boy, because I'm planning on getting this boy up to speed anyway, right? But I'm telling you this because it's like to illustrate to you that if you don't expose your people to knowledge, you can't expect them to have it. You know what I'm saying? This boy who if he just plays basketball and watches basketball, he don't even hear the sports commentary. Because you know it's bad when I'm telling you to go listen to sports commentary. Because I was also like, look at political commentary, you know, and all that kind of crap. But you know it's bad if I gotta tell you to look at, you know, Sports Center or something like that. You know it's bad, right? But at least then he'll be exposed to more words, you know, and that's really what happened. So it's like with our people, you know, when it comes to the books, especially the books that I'm putting out, right? You give our people those so that they're exposed to it at least, and to bring it back to the contradiction kind of thing. It's like you can't, you know, Garvey said this. He says you can't hold people accountable to things if you haven't taught them. Okay, if you haven't given our people good books, good literature, good African knowledge, right? You can't tell them, hey, look, you know, be an African. I can't expect this boy to know what ejection means. Only because he don't interact with dialogue. I can't expect him to know words in I can't expect him to read anything. Right? Because he's not exposed to these words. You understand? And the thing is that it's not just him either. You know, because like I said, when I was younger, me and these brothers were walking around. We were walking home from school, if you will, right? And we was just joking on each other about how the next one was gonna get a white woman when they get older, right? Only because, and the thing is that when they were telling me, yeah, you're gonna get a white woman when you're older, you know, because back then we wasn't, you know, we, even though we was about black folk, you know, the reason why it held something with me, right? I mean, I ain't got no white woman, right? But the reason why it held something with me was because at the time, the only political and academic woman I've ever heard of was a white woman. Like the only political intellect that I could think of at the time, right, was a white woman. Even of all the women, you know what I'm saying? Because I knew about, you know, obviously men, but, you know, kids, right? But when it came to women, like I didn't know any, like for instance, you know, like because that was like in the communist Marxist kind of tradition, right? So like I didn't know Claudia Jones would say, right? But like fast forward to even our tradition, you know, a nationalist tradition, I didn't know Marimba Ani. You understand? Like later on in life, I would meet Marimba Ani, of course, but at the time in high school, you know, your high school doesn't expose you to this stuff. Now, high school doesn't really expose you to any, you know, political and intellectual yada yada. But again, white people have, you know, they have Marxist.org or whatever. You know, so you go to that website, you look up, you know, you find a woman or whatever, and then you're like, oh man, this white woman, oh my gosh, you know, I need to get something like that. You know what I'm saying? But that's the thing that we don't have. So like now, at least when I was younger, right? Now we didn't have Nicki Minaj exactly, but we had Foxy Brown and Lil Kim and so on and so forth, you know? And it was like that was like if those were the women, right, that we were exposed to, right? The whole idea of respect the black woman, right? You know, didn't really, you know, like it was like, again, it was a contradiction. You get what I'm saying? It's like when you hear about you know, you hear about a dude who was like a brother who was a domestic abuser. You know, you can't if that's all the brothers you know, right? You can't be like, oh well, you gotta respect the black man. Nobody's gonna do that. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a contradiction. You can't respect somebody who's either not respecting themselves or is not respecting you. You know what I'm saying? Now in the Pro-Black Compendium, of course, page 146, you know, I talk about Frances Cress Welsing, Marimba Ani, Queen of Four, Jewel Pookrum, you know, and my personal favorite, Drusilla Dungy Houston, you know, and of course I have a whole bunch of warrior queen mothers in that book too. So that's another reason to read it and get it, of course. But the reality is that when I was younger, we didn't have that. Drusilla Dungy Houston. You think how was I gonna find out about her? You know, some people listening to this right now are like, who's that? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, when we are discussing, respecting the black woman or respecting the black man, whatever, we gotta understand what our children are being exposed to, because they're not really exposed to any respectable people, if you will, and say what you want about, Obama, if you will, it's like when you look at what's out there, Obama and Michelle, kind of stand out as a decent example. Unfortunately, if you don't look at, the real picture behind it, but just looking at it on a surface level, because who else are you gonna compare it to? Beyonce and Jay-Z. Cause I'm talking about these kids out there. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about the kids. I'm not talking about people with books. I'm talking about like this little boy who only watches and plays basketball. He sees the women around him. They're not talking eject, circumspect, sanguine, so on and so forth. Of course, nobody's really talking like that. But he's not interacting with them on that level. And then on top of that, when you turn on the TV, he just sees a bunch of booty shaking, and so on and so forth. The whole idea of he's gonna be respectful to black women, just doesn't even add up. It doesn't even add up. But you think of that commercial break, okay?
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
When will African people have basic rights? When will we be protected? When will our cost of living be eliminated? When will our cultures be preserved? We need a new leadership. One that has studied the problems and learned the solutions. The Pro-Black Compendium is the book to start off that leadership. Quotations, essays, poems, stories, codes of conduct, curricula, principles, relationship advice, marketing tips, group economics, games, book clubs, movie nights, chronologies, civilizations, wars, warriors, authors, songs, conflict resolution. The list goes on. There is no book more necessary for starting our people on the path to African redemption.
You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio.
So here's the thing, right? We have to be about the sharing of African knowledge, in a real sense, right? And we can't be contradictory, and that's really the focus. People are looking. People like I said earlier, you have to judge people by their contradictions. Okay, you have to judge people by their contradictions. That's really what moves me forward in life. And that's really and if you think about how your consciousness developed, it likely was through you observing and interacting and navigating contradictions, if you will. Like if you don't see the contradiction, you're okay with it. If you don't see that rap music change, you're okay with it. But if you see the difference between early rap and now, and the message, if you will, right? Then you might not necessarily follow it. Like for instance, I stopped following it, right? So, but the difference, of course, again, is that we got to be real with ourselves. We can't just say, for instance, Senegalese food, Senegalese people from Senegal eat differently. It's not as good as somebody tasting firsthand what the food tastes like. You understand? It's not the same to say it, or as Booker T. Washington put it, the actual sight of a first-class house that a Negro has built is 10 times more potent than pages of discussion about a house that he ought to build or perhaps could build. Okay? So I have this quote in the Pro-Black Compendium somewhere. I don't... Yeah. So, I mean, I don't say the word Negro in the book, but on page 44, you see, I said Booker T. Washington said the actual site of a first-class house that an African has built is 10 times more potent than the pages of discussion about, a book, a house that he could possibly make, right? And I want to share with you also Harriet Tubman quote, and she says, "I grew up like a neglected weed, ignorant of liberty, having no experience of it. Now that I've been free, I know what a dreadful condition slavery is," right? And this is pretty important too, because a lot of us know Harriet Tubman of say, something like, "Oh, I knew, I could have freed more, Africans, except that they didn't know that they were enslaved," right? And the thing with that is that here she's telling you that she's not just saying that from, oh, you don't even know you were enslaved. She's saying that when she was enslaved, that she really didn't know how horrible the situation was, notwithstanding being in the situation. So notwithstanding that she's being whipped and kicked and beaten, and she's seeing people lose limbs, she's seeing people die, she's seeing kids be beaten to death by white women, she's seeing all that, and she's like, well, this isn't really that bad. You know what I'm saying, you? And that because there's no contradiction. You understand? It's like if you're in a house that smells really bad, right? But you don't go outside, or you're in a city that smells really bad. You're in a city next to a garbage dump, and you're born in there, and you live there, whatever. It's not until you move out do you notice, man, shoot, this place stinks. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you probably have an idea that it's not that good, or it stinks a lot of times, right? But it's not until you leave that you really get the the full gamut, if you will. And that's what Harriet Tubman is saying. So, and I say all this to say, look, here's what you need to do. Because there's a little contradiction. It's a little contradictory. But you should be holding these pro-black compendium meetings. So I talk about the 8-week program in the book. And I'm telling you that's exactly what I used to do. I used to be holding these meetings, on a particular day of the week. Used to get people and hold these meetings. And one of the sisters actually told me that she would hold her own meetings with her blood sister, and as far as I understand, maybe some friends. But the whole idea is that, if you could hold a meeting, hold those meetings. Because what I can tell you right now is that the graduates went on to do good things, or were already doing good things and just did them better. But I'm saying this to say that to see black folk involved with them in firsthand is more powerful. You know what I'm saying? It's more powerful than say to see black people tweet. To see black people regularly come together, and discuss and give reverence to their ancestors on a weekly basis is stronger than even the social media tweets, even the social media discussion, so on and so forth. Now, of course, you don't want to put on your social media, meet me at this meeting. You know what I'm saying? Because you're just going, because the social media is just FBI book, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever. But definitely try to do that. Have yourself some meetings, okay? Because we the Oncobia. You understand? But if you can't do a meeting, right? Maybe do yourself a vlog every once in a while, even a book testimonial about the Pro-Black Compendium. But if not that, a vlog, and kind of do it like the other people, because like for all you can say about Cynthia G and China Fox and Ghazi, the weirdo, whatever, and Tariq and Umar or whomever, they're vlogging. Like all you can say about them, they are still vlogging. They have their face out there, and the only thing is this that I gotta tell you is this: that if you're going to do the meetings, right, then don't do the vlog. Okay, you shouldn't vlog and do the meetings because again, like I said, you know, the reality is you're going to deal with, you know, you're under 24/7 surveillance if you put yourself on the internet, or you're under surveillance when you put yourself on the internet. You know what I'm saying? And that surveillance, you know, you shouldn't, you know, because it's just going to make everything easier for your enemies to get you. You know what I'm saying? And the main principle is that regardless of whether your enemy can or can't get you, you know, you don't make it easy for them. Okay, you don't make it easy for them. So if you're absolutely certain that you're not going to hold meetings, you know, you could do the vlog and have meetings online maybe. You get what I'm saying? Have meetings online maybe. You know, like you call up somebody else and say, hey, look, we're gonna vlog and we're gonna discuss a particular section of the Pro-Black Compendium. We're gonna discuss the politics section. You know, you just go, you know, maybe y'all have 5 people on a conference call and y'all do that. You know, if you want me to help you set it up, let me know. You know what I'm saying? Just contact me on Twitter. Let's say if you're on Twitter, just at Onitaset. Just contact me and say, you know, say, brother, you know, I want to be a part of a particular, you know, vlog, if you will, you know. But if you're gonna have the conversation, you know, outside of that, you know, if you're gonna go in your local community, because that's really where it's supposed to be. But if you're gonna get your local community together, you know, don't do both of them, you know, because when you do both of them, or if you tell people online, hey, come meet me here, you know, tell you, man, the police gonna be right there, right there. But hope I didn't talk too long. But subscribe if you can, you know, share, like, definitely appreciate comments, you know, and I definitely appreciate reviews for the books. Definitely get your hands on the Carlos A. Cooks reader. Most of you need that book and don't even know it. And get yourself Zuberi and the Maroons of Maa and get the Pro-Black Compendium, you know. But thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned a lot today. And, you know, Shemi Emotep, Uncle Ja, Seneb Neb, Amen Ma'at, Dua Netcha. Thank you for listening. I invite you to join hands with your brothers and sisters as we recite the African affirmation together. It's a call and response, so follow my lead. We are an African people, robbed from our homeland, robbed of our names, our languages, our cultures, our religions, our womanhood, our manhood, our sisterhood, our brotherhood, our motherhood, our fatherhood, our selfhood, our nationhood, and our self-respect. But we shall rise, never to fall again. Up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.